What made you take up environmental engineering?
For me, I always wanted to be a civil engineer and I always wanted to be an environmental engineer given the dirt that we are seeing in the society.
Can you take us through what was your early days in Ramki and how this entire model evolved around RE?
At Ramki, environment and waste management was inherent. We came together with a project in Hyderabad which was called Hyderabad Waste Management Project. This was a Government of India and Government of Australia initiative.
We look at the international way of doing it. 10 countries you operate in. What are great models that we need to learn from?
We've identified a lot of countries who have the capability to pay, but there is no player who is capable to offer them services at low prices.
How do you define these things? Where do you think is the biggest problem when it comes to environment?
It's us, it's our mind which is the root of the problem in environment. If we start taking one step at a time, the world will be a beautiful place to live.
Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochatal. Environment is a big subject. Environment sustainability in modern urban agglomerates is a big challenge. Garbage disposal being one of them, sewage being another, and of course a host of other issues. You have chemical industries, you have households, and you have pharmaceutical companies. And of course there is domestic waste generated by tons every day. Treating them, keeping them in check, and of course using them to generate power is something that is happening in India right now. And one company that is ahead of it all is RE. And of course, we will learn more about it as we go along. And I have with me today Sri Goutham Reddy, who is the Vice Chairman of RE. I will just ask him to expand RE for us so that we get to know more about it. But it sounds very good because usually names are very big. But he is a veteran in this field with over 27 years of experience in environmental impact, creating solutions, developing solutions, and of course implementing it and reviewing them. Welcome, sir.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, sir. So we'll start with your early days. Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Nalgonda district.
Okay.
I'm native of a village called Nidmanur near Miryalguda and Nagarjun Sagar. Studied my very primary education in Miryalguda up to class 4. And from class 5, I did my education in public school Ramantapur, at that public school. Then did my civil engineering at Nagarjuna University. Went to US and did my master's in environmental engineering. Came back after my master's and a little bit of work experience there and joined as a scientist at an institution here, Telangana Society's institution called Environment Protection Training Research Institute. Worked as a scientist there. And then joined Ramki about 27 years back, like you rightly said, working in the field of environment.
So the question obviously would be, I know those days IT would not have been a fashion statement. Maybe mechanical engineering was more of an engineering subject. But what made you take up environmental engineering as a subject?
So IT was at the beginning of its offtake, because I did my master's between 91 to 92 to 94. During that time, IT
Yeah, just picking up.
A lot of people did move from different branches into IT. With even 1 month education, they moved into IT. A lot of that happened during that period. But for me, I always wanted to be a civil engineer and I always wanted to be an environmental engineer. Given the dirt that we are seeing in the society, I felt the opportunity was very large. And pollution was an important area. So it was by choice, not by force, that I went into environmental education.
Wonderful. EPTRI, and I remember those days it was possibly the only organization of its kind, at least in this side of the world, which kind of did substantial amount of work, and you worked there as a scientist. What was EPTRI like?
So EPTRI was in its very early stages. It just started in the year 92 and then it was just taking off. And I felt when I came from a visit during 94 when I was still completing my education, I went to this institute and figured out that, if I have to work in this area in India, I need to work with government and I need to work with some research. So I chose and spoke to them and they offered me an opportunity. So I came and joined as a scientist. It was a great experience working with government, trying to do research and all. But at some point, you would want to do rather than say.
Correct.
So that bug struck me, and that's why I moved out and joined Ramki. But otherwise, EPTI was also a great institute, and it was a pleasure working there.
And Ramki, of course, had different business formations within them. They had real estate, I guess, and they also had environment, which came in at the early days. And of course, the company now called RE Sustainability, which is kind of doing a lot of work across countries. If I'm not mistaken, at least 10 countries and more than double dozen state units that you're working with. Can you take us through what was your early days in Ramki and how this entire model evolved around RE?
So at Ramki, environment and waste management was inherent because our founder Goutham Reddy also happens to be an environmental sustainability mindset person. He worked in the area of environment at his very early age, and when we came together, it was a very good coincidence of people, both of whom are thinking same, wanting to do the same thing. We came together with a project in Hyderabad which was called Hyderabad Waste Management Project. This was a Government of India and Government of Australia initiative.
Okay.
So Government of India and Government of Australia came together where Government of Australia offered certain technology transfer and certain capability building in the areas of environment and waste management. As part of that, one of the components selected was hazardous waste management, for which Andhra Pradesh Pollution Control Board was selected as a counterparty to Government of India, and AUSAID, Australian Agency for International Development, was selected as the counterparty for Government of Australia. Under that bilateral agreement, a hazardous waste project was being planned. And I at TPTRI was a consultant for that project at that time.
Okay.
And that project was won by Ramki.
So you moved in automatically.
Mixture of lot of joining the dots we got together is how I would say.
Coincidences.
Coincidences.
So when you talk of hazardous waste management, of course, we'll get into the bigger picture of it, which includes starting from domestic into biomedical waste, and then we have Hyderabad is home to pharma, and obviously Patancheru at one time was considered the world's environmental hotspot. But how do you define these things? Where do you think is the biggest problem when it comes to environment? Where is is it domestic or is it industrial waste? Is it biomedical? Where does the major threat come from?
I would first tend to say it's the mind where the real problem is.
Okay.
If you look at all of us, we all talk so much about environment. All of us feel so much about environment. All of us think so much about environment and talk. But what do?
Nothing.
Nothing. Every one of us are not doing anything to contribute to the environment. We all know what has to be done. There's nothing that I have to tell. Conserve energy, conserve water, minimize water, segregate waste, keep it in good shape, reuse, recycle. Everything is known. There's nothing. Even a small boy can tell what is supposed to be done to protect the environment. Do not use vehicles, walk, use a bicycle, use a bullock cart. How many of us are doing it?
That's true.
So it's us, it's our mind which is the root of the problem in environment. If we start taking one step at a time, the world will be a beautiful place to live, which we are not really contributing. Once we do this, then there are lots of problems. And still, there's nothing called zero pollution. I always give a very simple example. Can human being live without pollution? The answer is no. And I give you a very simple example. We breathe in air, we breathe out carbon dioxide. We are polluting. We drink water, we urinate. We are polluting. We eat food, we defecate. We are polluting. So without pollution, we cannot even live. So pollution is a must. What is important is how do we mitigate it? How do we minimize it? How do we ensure that the impact is not going to the next generation? That's sustainability. That's what is the real thing that we are supposed to do. And that mitigation is where all of us have to contribute back to the environment. It's a responsibility. It's not even a social responsibility. It's a human responsibility.
Correct. Basically. Now, the problem is always that in India, environment always takes a backseat. When you look at European countries, when you look at advanced countries, they place a lot of emphasis on environment, waste segregation and a lot of other things long before we started. Maybe we are catching up there. But the point that comes to you when you talk of environment, as you rightly said, it's everybody's responsibility. We see water flowing off, go to Cherrapunji or even neighborhood areas. There's so much of rain now, even on the Meghalaya side. But when it comes to summer, there's no drinking water. So this is something that we face in Hyderabad. When you have monsoons, you have Musi overflowing. Okay, Usman Sagar gates being lifted. But again, when it comes to summer, there's no drinking water. But let us start with the basics. The start obviously would be with the domestic, because that's a huge challenge. It's true that we in India are experts at recycling everything. From the neighborhood kabadiwala who segregates cardboard to plastic to everything under the sun, they recycle it. Even the area where I live, like any rest of Hyderabad, we segregate the waste, dry and wet. Now, when you look at Hyderabad as a unit, and we can replicate that with the rest of India, how is it this challenge handles the domestic collections?
It's very important. You brought up a very right question. First, I'll just give a comparison between a developed country and a country like us. Just imagine we are hungry and want to go and have a quick food in US. You would end up either in a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Pizza Hut or any of these places. Now imagine, what do we eat? We eat a burger which is wrapped in a paper, French fries which come in a wrap of a paper box, a Coke which comes in a
Plastic.
semi-paper, semi-plastic kind of a mixture with a straw, 4 sachets of ketchup, mayonnaise, 5 or 6 tissue papers, and all of this on a tray which has a paper. At the end of eating the burger and the fries, now imagine what we left. We left all paper and plastic on the waste. Now, that's one part. Now, imagine exactly same thing happens in India. If it's in South India, we'll eat a idli, vada, chutney. If it is North India, we'll probably eat a samosa and
Jalebi.
tamarind chutney and jalebi. If it is Bombay, we'll eat vada pav and chutney. But at the end of it, what are we leaving? So washing our hands and coming out.
That's it.
There's nothing waste.
The maximum they might have a plantain leaf. That's it.
Now, what we have left is probably a banana leaf and a little bit of idli that we didn't eat, or a little bit of samosa that we didn't eat, versus paper and plastic. Now, imagine the value of this waste. There's a lot of value in the paper and plastic. If you recycle, there's money. If you burn, it has heat value. If you convert it to gas, it has value. It has a lot of value. What is left in India doesn't have value. On top of this, the fact that it doesn't have value is already inherent. Imagine what happens. Our housewives should be rated number 1 in the world.
They recycle.
They're the best recyclers. I have not seen a Horlicks bottle being thrown off as a Horlicks bottle. It ends up becoming a peanuts bottle or a cashew nut bottle.
Or a masala bottle.
Masala bottle. Imagine a mug that is used in a bathroom. I haven't seen one mug being thrown until it has come to a stage where the holes will leak more than what the mug can take. That's when the plastic mug is thrown. So we are recycling and reusing it as much as possible. At the end of it, compared to a country like US, which generates about 3 kgs per head per day, India generates about 300 grams per head per day. That's 1/10. And that 1/10 is also of a low quality. The problem in India is, whatever this low quality, our citizens are not doing that little bit where you segregate it by the source and hand it over in a segregated form is not happening. And therefore, all of this comes as a mixed waste, and huge amount of energy is spent in again segregating. Now, when you segregate one, your efficiency, when you segregate 10,000 tons at one location versus 1 kg at a location, it's very different. So there the efficiency is 50% after spending a lot of energy. As a result, the output is weak. As a result, citizens are ending up paying higher for the cost of protecting environment, which is not a great idea.
Now, when it comes to India, usually these all end up in landfills. Of course, we are a big country. We can afford to do that compared to, say, Sweden or Finland, or where they are very, very sensitive about these things. You know it better. But the question is, landfills also are getting scarce now. People are moving away from city, and landfills are coming close to populations. How do you see the future looking at this? Because sooner or later, we saw it in Delhi, where there was a mountain that was created. We have Jawahar Nagar here in Hyderabad, and we are talking of moving to newer locations now. In terms of the modern technology that you bring into the table, in terms of segregation, and then of course generating waste, and then generating energy out of it, how is it the future looking like?
Yeah, very unfortunately in India, like you rightly said, Delhi has very large dumps, Balaswa, and Calcutta has a large dump, Dhapa. Chennai has large dumps at Kodangayur and Perungudi. Bangalore has large dumps which are all private. Bombay has large dumps at Kanjurmarg and Devnar and all these places. So every city in the country is with dumps. And the reason being, they do not want to spend money for disposing it. This is the root of the problem. Now, is any city not transporting the waste away from the city? It is.
It is.
It is good quality or bad quality transportation. It has to get transported because if not, we cannot live in the city anymore. And therefore, it gets transported. But because there nobody is putting pressure, all of this is getting and translating into dump. And the surprising part is there is law which is existing and implementable since 2003. So for the last 21 years, cities are continuing to dump and the law exists. Why does the law exist in India? God only knows.
There's no implementation
There
of
is
it.
zero implementation. No city in the country except Hyderabad today can say we are managing the entire list. Not even one.
How does Hyderabad do it then?
Hyderabad is doing it because Hyderabad actually, we are locally based, so we spent a lot of time with the governments, we educated, we worked together, and ultimately it worked out that the entire city's waste comes to us. So we collect, transport, treat, and dispose. In Hyderabad, we are converting the waste into power, we're converting the waste into biogas, we're converting the waste into compost, we're converting the waste into recyclables, and less than 20% goes into the landfill. And the law is it has to be processed before it is landfill. Nowhere in the country it's happening. So Hyderabad that way should be a proud city that it can boast of 100% processing and disposal of waste.
That means the twin cities of Hyderabad and Secunderabad can serve as a role model for other cities. You can just take it and implement in other places.
Certainly, there is no doubt about it. It's a model that can be easily replicated.
Now we are done with the domestic part of it, not entirely, but still, we'll come back to it later on. The other part of it is the hazardous waste management. Then there is, of course, biomedical waste and a whole lot of it. How are these individually dealt with, sir?
So hazardous waste and biomedical waste are a little more dangerous than compared to the municipal waste. Municipal waste will create environmental problem and a little bit of health hazard. So to give you the best example on hazardous waste, there used to be this concept in Japan where they used to serve fish right across the sea. They used to fry the fish and serve. And fish had the very unique capability when it consumes certain things, poisonous things will be put aside.
Okay.
So it had the capability to put mercury aside and digest the remaining thing and keep living. And when the fish was cut and fried, the mercury is still in the body of the fish. Human beings ate and thousands of people died. When people researched what happened, there was mercury being discharged into the sea. And that mercury got into the fish, so many fishes. And those fish were being eaten by people and everybody were getting mercury poisoning. Even today, the disease of mercury poisoning is called Minamata disease.
Minamata, I remember
And
this.
Minamata disease is a hazardous waste of mercury which got into this Minamata Sea where people started drinking, eating fish. Now, the dangers of mercury direct consumption is horrible. People will die of the disease. Like this, there are multiple things which are hazardous, like mercury, like cadmium, like chromium, arsenic. Some of these materials, if they get into your biocycle, you will get poisoned and you will ultimately die. And therefore, they have a lot more importance to be handled very well. And that's one part. Come to the medical waste. It's a very different breed of animal. It's not hazardous. It's infectious. And as you know, infection spreading will typically happen through body fluids. And body fluids could be blood, pus, sputum, any of this. So why is it that people say don't shake hands? Why do we use masks during COVID and all? Because when you sneeze, you are actually getting your body fluids out. And those are through nasal or through oral going into somebody else's body, and that's why he is getting infected. Needle. I use a needle on you and it's again used on me. There's a cross-contamination of blood between the two people.
True.
If there is infection to one person, it's likely to spread to the other person if you don't have immunity. Now, this way, every single medical waste will get in contact with body fluid. So, what are the things? It's a scalpel blade, it's a needle, it's a scissor, it's a cotton, bandage. Any of these is actually, you're using it because it has to get in contact with some of your body.
Correct.
So, once it got in contact with somebody's body, it has become an infectious material. And with a potential to spread that infection to another person. Now, another part of this problem is, in itself, the medical waste doesn't have food.
Okay.
So the microbes also need food to survive. As like humans, people can't survive on cotton, people can't survive on bandage, people can't survive on a metal like needle or a scalpel blade. So at some point, the blood that is there, which is the food, will end. And the microorganisms will start dying by themselves. Unfortunately, when you mix it with municipal waste,
that's when the problem starts.
you get all the tomatoes and cabbage and all of this, which is good food for microorganisms. And microorganisms grow at what is called as a logarithmic growth rate. So instead of going linearly, they grow logarithmically. And the number of infected virus, bacteria, fungus will become multifold. And that infectious waste is becoming a huge problem. So first, you have to segregate it and keep it as medical waste and don't mix it with municipal waste. That's a very important thing. Then manage this medical waste properly. Technologies for all of them are very evident, whether it's hazardous, municipal, medical. Ultimately, it all boils down to, I simplify this in human terms, it all boils down to simple, bury or burn. If a man dies,
True.
it's wrong to compare it with waste, but if a man dies,
Yes, sir.
there are only two choices in the world. He has to either be buried or he has to be burnt.
Correct.
Right? Or there are some religions where it is left back to recycle, so that's recycling. So it's either bury, burn or recycle. So you either have to incinerate it and convert it to power or do some energy saving there, or you have to bury it in the landfill. Otherwise, you have to recycle. The priority is to recycle. Recover as much as possible. Use it as many times as possible. Recover it, reuse, regenerate, and then dispose the waste.
I think the bigger hospitals, of course, have a, as per the law, they follow it in terms of collection of this thing. I've seen teams going across in vehicles collecting all that. But in the smaller hospitals is where the problem might be arising, I guess. I'm not really sure.
Right now, across the country, biomedical waste, I can tell, is the best managed waste in the country. 90+% of the medical waste is treated and disposed because common facilities have come at every single district.
Okay.
So in India, there must be more than 300 common biomedical waste management facilities who collect, transport and dispose. Big and small, all hospitals are served by the common facilities. And I must be very happy that it's at about 90% efficiency because you could actually identify a polluter and ask him to pay. And the capability of that hospital to pay is also quite high.
I think it's also the knowledge that goes into what the dangerous consequences of it.
And they're educated, they're aware of the consequences. It's easy to educate them. And this was the first to come live. In 2000 was the first facility that came. We only established that first facility in Hyderabad. And we've been operating it 25 years. Not a single day of break in service of biomedical waste. It has to be done every day, and we have done it for 25 years without one day break, including when COVID came, including when strikes and curfews came. There was no
365 break. Days, 24/7.
It's like milk vendor.
Yeah, I was about to say.
One day of milk
I was about to say that you have to milk the cow every day.
Every day, you have to do it every day.
So the question obviously comes as when we dealt with hazardous, we came into before that domestic, and then we looked at biomedical. There is also the factor that there are, Hyderabad being home to India's biggest pharmaceutical companies, they have their own systems, they collect it, they have their own STPs. How does that part of it work?
See, in environment, ultimately, there are three things that have to be protected in any industry. One, they have the solid waste, which typically from an industry would be classified as hazardous because they use harsh chemicals and most of the industrial waste will translate to be hazardous. The way to collect, treat and dispose it is collect it, recover it, reuse it, minimize it, and then you either bury it or burn. So either incinerate or landfill. That's how the solid waste is taken care. Then they have the gaseous waste. And gaseous waste, there are good technologies. Every kind of gas can be clean.
Scrubbers.
See, ultimately, the gas will either be organic or inorganic. If it is organic, run it through carbon. Carbon will filter the volatiles and ensure that it's clean. If it's inorganic, acid waste, you make it alkaline and neutralize it, and dust you remove it. That's how you treat the gases. There are very good technologies. There are bag filters, there are cyclone dust collector, there are ESPs, there are chemical scrubbers. All of this put together, you're able to clean the gases. For effluents, every industry has its own chemical math. So you need to figure out that real problem and treat it. Today, right or wrong, it's very difficult to say, but the whole country is moving towards a technology called zero liquid discharge. Every state wants that. You produce whatever you want, but don't discharge anything outside your premises. Which means the entire water consumed has to be disposed. And disposing is very difficult because in most of the pharma industry, there is an equation where acid and base reacts. And every acid and base, HCl plus NaOH you look at or any other equation, it will result in a salt like a sodium chloride or a sodium sulfate. Now this salt is not treatable easily. It's like, I'll give a simple example. We have pickles at home.
Yes, sir.
And the pickle will survive for a year, whereas our vegetable curry will not survive for tomorrow. Right? And the simple reason is there's so much salt in the pickle. That's the reason it survives a year.
It's
It doesn't
like
degrade.
like a preservative.
Like a preservative. It's a heavy preservative. Same thing happens in effluent. Therefore, they are evaporating it. Now, by evaporating, again, you are converting a liquid pollution into a gaseous pollution. Now, is that a right answer? God knows. But that's the current solution. So, there are solutions for all of them, but the industry needs to be willing to spend.
Yeah, that's what Bachapalli and nearby residents often complain about. Even we in Alwal sometimes feel that smell coming there. Then there is construction and demolition part of it, which is also, we assume that you go towards high-tech city, another part, you see mountains of demolition stuff lying out there, and Hydra and others say that, no, we'll get it cleared, don't worry. Then there are lakes that get polluted. You technically can't even, as I say, if you want to commit suicide in Hussain Sagar, just smell it, don't drown in it. Though the question is, we have to protect our urban bodies, especially the water bodies, because we're going to have a crisis sooner or later. How is this entire thing about the STPs and all, how does it work, sir?
So, construction demolition waste is a very interesting topic you raised, and you will be shocked, and I'd encourage your team to visit our plant also and take a look at it. 100% of the construction waste can be recycled. 100%.
Oh.
It's not like municipal waste where it is 60-70% or hazardous waste where it's 30-40%. 100% of the waste can be recycled. So, just imagine this building. You demolish it. What all comes out of it? There's wood, there's glass, there's metal, and there's concrete, bricks, steel.
Yes.
Now, which of this component is not recyclable?
Everything is
Everything is reusable. Everything has a value. It's just that segregating it will cost you a little more than the raw material. Finally, it translates to what is the price that you need to pay for it. But we have already commissioned 7 plants in the country. I, as an environmental company owner, am proudest to manage the construction demolition waste because I'm not sending anything back to the landfill or dumping it anywhere. I'm recycling 100%. So today, I manufacture sand, which comes from construction waste. I manufacture aggregates. I manufacture curb walls. I manufacture tiles. All of it coming from construction.
So you're actually making money out of it.
We're making money. It's not adequate to be self-sufficient. So there needs to be.
No, when I say money, what I meant is there's a value that is being.
Commercial value to it. The satisfying part is there's a product that's generated, which is the most important thing.
So the obvious question that comes up now is when you're dealing with so many states across the country, so many cities across the country, how does the governments have their attitude changed over the years in terms of waste management and other disposal?
I would say it certainly has improved substantially. We are operating in 22 states and about 14 countries. Substantial change in mindset is there across the countries. But at the same time, the willingness to pay is still not as good as it is supposed to be. And honestly, if I give you numbers, it's a real small problem where the government is not actually spending. I'll take an example of Telangana, for example, and we'll confine to waste. We are about a 4 crore population people. Assuming we generate half a kg per head per day or 0.6, we're talking of generating about 24,000 tons of waste per day.
Yes.
To manage this 24,000 tons of waste, all the state needs to spend is barely 1,000 crores.
That's all.
Now, if we are telling a state like Telangana cannot spend 1,000 crores, I also say Telangana state does not have a right to ask for good quality environment. If you are not willing to spend and expect a solution, it's not going to happen. Somebody has to spend. Either the government has to spend, or the individual has to spend, or the society has to spend, or the municipality has to spend. But as a state, that number is minuscule.
Yeah, I mean, you look at them.
If you translate it to a country level, can government of India not spend it to solve the problem? The answer is yes. When you don't want to spend, don't ask for it anymore.
I think the municipal authorities also need to realize that when you're collecting property tax, and the citizens also expect something in return because they are paying for it. And I'm sure.
Unfortunately, most municipalities' financial positions are really
terrible.
That's very sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they are not doing the job. They are called civic bodies because they are supposed to do civic amenities, which is only street lighting, water supply, drainage, and waste. But instead, they are doing parks, roads, and other things.
Which is not there.
Forgot the basic civic amenities.
That is not their core competence.
That's not their core competence.
So when you look at internationally, now that we have dealt with the domestic part of it to a large extent, of course, we could go on for a couple of hours, but I know you have a paucity of time. We look at the international way of doing it. 10 countries you operate in. What are great models that we need to learn from?
So one thing we have seen is most developing countries like ours have exactly the same problem. I go to Sri Lanka, I go to Bangladesh, I go to Thailand, I go to Vietnam. I see exactly the same waste and see exactly that municipalities are not spending money, they're dumping. So dumping is happening in most emerging countries in the world. It's not just India. Now, what we have seen is that the only countries who are spending money on waste management are countries like the US, the France, the Germany, and all these people. And their cost of treating and disposing waste is in the order of hundreds of dollars per ton. So they are at $150 to $200 per ton to treat and dispose the waste. Whereas we in India are doing it at $20 per ton.
Wow.
Now that's a 10-time difference. So we realize that our solutions are going to be same to any emerging economy. Whether I go to Vietnam, whether I go to Thailand, whether I go to even Middle East, incidentally, because it grew so fast, they didn't have environmental solutions which were good and robust. So in Middle East and in Southeast Asia, we've identified a lot of countries who have the capability to pay, but there is no player who's capable to offer them services at low price. Therefore, we went into most of these countries in Southeast Asia and Middle East, offering them low cost, emerging country environmental solutions.
The polluter pays is a usual common legal anecdote that's spoken about. In case of urban agglomerations, suppose tomorrow, I'm just taking a hypothetical situation, Supreme Court says, if the municipal authorities don't do the job, fine them or do whatever they want. Because the citizens need a good quality health. And we take Delhi as an example. During the stubble burning season in Punjab, Haryana, and even towards Uttar Pradesh, we see this problem coming every year, that people are not able to breathe, schools take a break. And that is something which is purely man-made. Okay, we can't even blame nature for it. It's a man-made disaster. So do you think as Indians, we have this chalta hai attitude for everything?
Huge. Like you rightly pointed out, polluter pays principle is a very important part of it. And unless the judiciary steps in and takes action for non-implementation of the law, which is already 21 years overdue, if they don't take action, this is what is going to be. If I have survived 21 years, can I not survive 2 more years as commissioner of this municipality? That's the mindset with many states, and that's not going to work unless there is action taken against government at 1 or 2 locations. This problem is not going to be solved.
Looking at the future, as we close this conversation, looking at the future of treating waste across sectors, where do you think we will be, say, 25 years from now? I know 25 is too long, so let's take 10 years.
I would tend to believe we are in the right direction. In 10 years, I should see municipal waste and other waste coming closer to 85-90% efficiency in treating, provided judiciary takes some actions in the right direction and steps forward. I'm quite hopeful. What we have moved over the last 25 years that I've been in this sector, when I came to India 30 years back, 0 tons of waste was being managed. I myself am managing about 11 million tons of waste every year. Now getting to 100 million tons in 10 years is possible, and I wish and hope it comes very fast. RE stands for Ramki Enviro, which was the old name of the company, Ramki Enviro Engineers Limited. We felt environment is confined to protecting the environment, air, water, and soil. Sustainability that way is protecting next generation's rights on the earth. And therefore, sustainability is over-encompassing environment, and therefore we change the word enviro to sustainability. RE also stands for Ramki Enviro, which is the old name. And RE, if you realize, stands for anything to do with reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, regenerate, everything
has RE in it.
Re means again and again and again, do it again and again and again. That's why we thought we have to protect this environment again and again. And that's why RE sustainability came into it.
In fact, long before when I was with Times of India, I think somewhere in 91 or 92, we did a series in Economic Times called Logic of the Logo, where we got logos of different companies and we analyzed them saying, was it just made like that? Or there's a lot of thought process that went into making that logo. And when we realized that, when you looked at each logo and spoke to those companies, there was a huge amount of research that had gone in. And we are talking of something 30 years ago, 35 years ago. I think I'm sure so much of effort went into making the RE logo.
This logo reflects the 2 things. One is infinity and the other is recycle. That's how the logo comes.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful.
It does go.
I mean, not just running a waste management company broadly, but I think it's also in terms of, as you said, leaving a better tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren, because our generation is anyway one step away. But I think the way we can live behind a better world for them is by making it sure that we follow the rules, regulations, and of course, treat waste the way it should be treated. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thanks for all the viewers.
Thank you. That was Goutham Reddy, the Vice Chairman of RE Sustainability. He spoke in detail about how the waste management process started, say 30 years ago, 35 years ago, and where it stands today in terms of a range of industries from domestic to hazardous to construction and demolition. We have a long way to go, a long way to go. We might pat ourselves on the back and say, okay, we are doing a good job, but then there's always a chance of doing something better. And that is where the role of citizens comes in. I think we need to understand that we also have a responsibility to leave a better world for our children. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.